NATO is calling up almost 100,000 troops for its biggest drills in almost 40 years.
And the numbers are staggering. 50 ships, 80 fighter jets, and 1,100 tanks and other combat vehicles. They'll be deployed along an eastern front stretching thousands of miles. NATO is hoping it's enough to deter Russia from targeting a member nation.
People find it a surprise and as a result buy a radio on batteries. That is great. It is part of the package that the Swedish government is talking about. You need to have water, you need to have a radio on batteries, and you need to have a flashlight on batteries to make sure that you can survive the first 36 hours. Things like that. That's simple things.
Just after the drills were announced, Russia's foreign ministry reaffirmed it will continue its war in Ukraine regardless of pressure from NATO.
During August and September, Europe will host NATO's largest exercise since the end of the Cold War, named Steadfast Defender 24, according to Spanish ABC. These exercises will simulate a Third World War, starting with an attack by a fictional enemy called Ocassus on one of the alliance's member countries. In addition to full members, Sweden will also participate in the activities, which will be conducted in Germany, Poland, the Baltic countries, and the North Sea. Besides the large scale, this exercise is notable because part of the activities will take place on the border with Belarus and Ukraine. On the other hand, Moscow has repeatedly emphasized that it poses no threat to any NATO country, but will not ignore actions harmful to its interests. The president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, has stated that Russia does not want a direct military conflict with NATO, but if someone else desires it, Moscow is well prepared. While we hoped a year ago that the war in Ukraine might at least subside during 2023, much now suggests that this conflict not only shows no signs of ending but could also spill over into other countries like Moldova, Georgia, and the Baltic states, with unpredictable consequences for all of Europe. Meanwhile, there is a great danger that the war between Israel and the Palestinian Hamas, which began in October last year, the fiercest since 1973, not only drags on indefinitely but also spreads to a wider Middle Eastern region. Following a concentric circle pattern, one crisis follows another. Venezuela has declared that it claims half of neighboring Guyana, rich in oil. Tensions are also rising around Taiwan due to China's increasing displays of force in an attempt to reintegrate it, which could provoke a larger conflict, and possibly a third world war, if the USA becomes militarily involved. Houthi authorities in Yemen have ordered American and British staff of the United Nations and humanitarian organizations operating in Sana'a to leave the country within a month. The letter ordered foreign organizations not to engage American and British citizens for operations in Yemen. The chief Houthi negotiator, Mohammed Abdul Salam, confirmed the letter's authenticity to a British agency. The decision followed attacks by the USA and Britain, supported by other nations, against military targets of a group linked to Iran, which launched attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea connected to Israel. In solidarity with the Palestinians. Because of this, the USA has returned the Houthis to the list of terrorist groups. North Korea fired several cruise missiles into the Yellow Sea on January 24th around 7 a.m. local time, announced the Joint Chiefs of Staff of South Korea's armed forces. Tensions between North and South Korea have been rising since the beginning of the month when Pyongyang fired a barrage of artillery shells for 3 consecutive days, while Seoul retaliated with a military exercise. The missile launches came a few days after Pyongyang conducted an underwater nuclear weapon system test. HAL 523, on Friday, January 19th. In protest against the joint underwater military exercises previously held by South Korea, the USA, and Japan. The expansion of BRICS and the growing divide between the global South and the Western Bloc are indicators of the most significant tectonic shifts in the global order since World War II. Ben Hodges, former commander of US forces in Europe, stated that if Donald Trump is elected president of the USA in November, it would weaken NATO and leave Europe vulnerable to a Russian attack. Hodges said that if Putin sees NATO disunited because of Trump's presidency, it might lead him to think he can now attack. His comments came just a few days after it was revealed that Trump, after his presidency, told European officials he would never help Europe if it were attacked, and that NATO was dead. Hodges said the likelihood of Putin launching an invasion and starting a third world war would significantly increase if Trump becomes president again. Admiral Ron Bauer, chairman of NATO's military committee, urged both civilians and governments to prepare for cataclysmic conflicts and the unpleasant possibility of conscription. We must understand that peace is not something to be taken for granted, and that's why we have plans. That's why we are preparing for conflict with Russia, Bauer told reporters after a meeting of NATO defense chiefs in Brussels. Bauer added that public and private actors must change their mindset from an era where everything was planned, predictable, controlled, and focused on efficiency, to an era where anything can happen at any time. An era where we must expect the unexpected. Former U.S. President and potential Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump promised voters that he would end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours if re-elected. He accused President Joe Biden's administration of not even trying to negotiate with Putin. I will have a deal within 24 hours. Standing here today, I am the only candidate who has made that promise. I will stop the Third World War towards which we are heading, Trump said. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed concern about the possibility of Trump returning to the White House and described Trump's claim that he could stop the war in Ukraine with Russia in 24 hours as very dangerous, fearing that Trump's idea of a solution through negotiation might include Ukraine making significant concessions to Russia. Russian officials have repeatedly stated that Russia's goal is not to acquire new territories, as the West tries to portray, but to protect itself from military threats from the West, to ensure the security of the entire country, and to protect national interests. At the same time, it remains open to dialogue, but on an equal basis. After everything you've heard, do you think there will be a third world war? Share your thoughts in the comments.